Okay, so let's open this up to our panelists. So as we start looking at there, I'm going to throw it out to everyone on our call. Welcome. How do you feel we could be better prepared for any future disruption, and what have we really learned?
Well, Tim, I take the question with Thomas from Rehau. Well, to describe the situation, Rehau is a global company. We have more than 20,000 employees. We have more than 170 locations worldwide. We're a company of 3 billion euro sales plus. And so we are a typical manufacturing company, which is used to develop continuity plans, to work on the topics and prepare. And so this is a unique situation. So could anybody prepare in the right way? I think we couldn't. So it's kind of sailing on site, really to see what is going on and adapting plans. And so what we did as a company is in late March, as we have seen the signs in China in our business, we immediately started setting off a task force. Comprehensive task force consisting of the top management, financial guys, healthcare guys, security, environmental, IT, and really thinking, okay, what is now the impact? How can we preserve cash from a financial perspective? How can we work with our partners on the contracts? How can we secure supply chain? So really comprehensive work, and really week by week, day by day, seeing what the situation is and preparing. And our philosophy has been like planning for the worst, but work on the better. So we had plans in place saying, okay, if sales drops dramatically down, how can we survive? How can we pay our salaries? What is with short-time working in Germany? How can we deal in other countries where the instruments of Europe, Germany, Austria are not there, or UK? And so we did a lot of stuff. From the IT perspective, I guess we have been already on the way. So we had a lot of cloud tools. We had a social intranet already in place. We had already 60% of our population being able to work remotely. That is what we tackled. That is what we increased to a certain extent. That is what we monitored closely, like starting first no videos and then over time allowing it. So technology is the backbone, but wasn't our focus. Our focus is still to preserve the business. What we have seen is that working on the business side, that is the so-called easy thing, but working on the social aspects, how to deal now with the workforce being remote, playing the kids around in your office, the working times, how do you plan for meetings? How do you continue projects? So all these questions kind of have been in our focus, and we learned a lot basically in that. Also leadership. I mean, we're used to maybe work 1 day per week remotely. Now the team is spread, and how do you manage your team? How can you motivate your team, and so on? And so these has been all the aspects. I would say we're kind of stable, and so we're kind of more in mid case, not in worst case. That is good, but I think we're just halfway through, right? So we see the impacts right now in Americas, for example. I think we have to prepare for a second wave. We have to prepare, even think about more to come. So we're doing good on one hand. On the other hand, I guess we need to tackle it further on.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Some really interesting insights there. Is there anything that you feel that has really caught you by surprise, that as you do start planning for a second wave, that you have really learned from? I mean, part of that was the social aspect, which sounds interesting because that's not necessarily the remit of the IT department. How are you working with other departments to sort of get over those sorts of social barriers or those cultural shifts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, just to comment on this point about the sort of social interaction and what we learned from that. One thing that we've learned during this crisis is the importance of over communicating. And the value of the sort of personal connection to the leadership of the company in a time of crisis. And actually, the technology that we've been able to use, the video, the collaboration tools, the regular all hands meetings, we've ended up doing a weekly email or video from our CEO to everyone in the company, and numerous all hands meetings. And we have found that actually this has had the sort of unexpected side effect of really helping people to feel connected into the whole, in what is obviously a very difficult time, and to personally relate to senior leaders in the organization in a way that actually they never did before. We all get to see inside each other's houses, we get interrupted by our kids or pets or whatever. And this insight into each other's lives reminds us that we're all human beings as well as co-workers, and it's actually really valuable social and relationship capital. So that was a bit of an unexpected effect. But we also learned, I think, with video incredibly useful, collaboration through video, very powerful. But one of the things that we found is that during the crisis, because everybody, at least in our company, almost everybody has been working from home. So everybody has been on video. And one of the things we realized through that is that previously, the take up of video collaboration tools wasn't always that great, partly because you always had some people who were in a meeting room somewhere, and then the people who were on video were almost like sort of second-class citizens in that interaction. Whereas now with everybody on video, it's much more inclusive. And, we found that to be really powerful. And now the question for all of us, I think, is as we, eventually get through the COVID crisis and things return to more to normal, how do we make sure that we keep the learnings from that and are still able to use those collaboration tools in that kind of inclusive way? And that's not
Graham,
technology, it's about the process of how we do it.
Yeah, Graham, you touched on some very interesting areas there specifically. One of which was you said that your senior management are making recordings. Now, that's really interesting because I've heard a number of colleagues and friends and family members, they refer to Zoom fatigue, where people are just completely maxed out with the amount of meetings that they have to attend. And recordings is something that we need to sort of think more about, because then we can play it via podcast when we're out running or exercising. We can watch it in our own time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have 2,000 people in the world all descending onto one meeting when there's no need for it, because it's just imparting information. So I think one thing that's interesting is our choice of technology tools as we start looking to communicate, which I don't think we've really given a great deal of consideration over.
That's certainly true. One of the things that we're seeing is an increase in asynchronous communication. So there is an element of Zoom fatigue, which makes all the newspapers, and it's a reality. I think for us, we were always very, very heavily into video conferencing, but I think the ability to asynchronously communicate through podcasts or video recordings has increased. But I think the other thing that we've experienced, and we're still struggling with the answer to this question, is the blurring between work and non-work. I think a lot of people in our organization are really finding those boundaries very hard to maintain, where people are now, I get emails from people, 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. And I think it's increasing the pressure on individuals who, sometimes, I've got a lovely garden, I can go and sit in the garden. Some people are actually sitting in, sharing a room with people when they're trying to work. And I think the blurring between those things has increased the stress on people. And I think one of the things we've got to figure out as an organization, I think all of us actually, not just our organization, is how do we help people maintain those boundaries between the different elements of work?
Yeah, I've always heard, thank you, David. I've always heard about work-life balance, but I almost feel that it's impossible to balance, and we should perhaps think about work-life integration. As long as my company can see that I'm doing what's expected of me, does it matter if I have a little bit of a later start at 9:15 or have a bit of an earlier finish if I want to exercise, go for a run, take the dog for a walk or whatever? I'm quite interested in the cultural shifts. Are we going to move to more results-orientated mindset rather than I'm paid between these 2 hours between 9 and 5? Really interesting. I'll be interested to see if there's any other people on the call that feel that there's other technology that we have not yet mentioned that has been really beneficial.
It's interesting. We were experimenting with flexible working before this all started, just in a couple of offices. So the concept being the number of hours you do a week is measured as an average over a month, and you can work wherever you want, whenever you want. And that we were trying it in an office in Australia and one of our offices, Liverpool office in the UK, and it was so successful and so popular, people didn't want to go backwards. But the technology challenges were things like flexible timesheet systems, and a lot of the out-of-the-box products don't really support that kind of flexibility. So we had to do a lot of integration and work to make that work. And of course, COVID hits, and all the preconceptions around, there's still those people in our organizations that think you're judged by being at your desk for 9 a.m. and all that's blown out of the water. And I think that the shift that's going to happen now is exactly that. It's a completely different way of working for a large percentage of the workforce from now on. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think that will become normal, and it might change and alter as it goes along. The other thing that we learned that I thought was quite interesting is the ability for people to adapt in a crisis. The people on this call, the number of change projects I'm sure you've been through where we've had to put lots of resources into doing a rollout of a system such as Zoom or Teams across a global business, and the amount of change management required and training required. COVID comes along, we deploy to 17,000 users in 2 days, and everyone's able to use it and adapt really quickly. And it just shows what people really can do if they're really focused and there's a crisis, and we're all moving in the same direction. And I think that is a really big lesson for us in terms of maintaining the momentum of technology change.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, very good point. I'm interested to explore, was there anything that completely blindsided you? Was there anything that you weren't prepared for?
So in real, it was like the sales areas in a certain way where the business continuity plans not really were in place. So we have been figuring out that we need to increase the remote working in sales office by a lot, basically. And so we needed to provide laptops and so on through the borders, which have been closed. So that was kind of surprised. I think we also haven't been prepared in a way in the social aspect that we have been covering so far, because how we deal in a permanent base with this topic now, day by day, over months, I think nobody prepared for that. So that is a kind of a shock where we need really to prepare and give you some insight. Yesterday, I had the very first meeting after 4 months with my direct reports on ground here in Rehau, Germany. And everybody said, oh, it's so great to be back here in the team and to talk face to face and to see reactions and behaviors and to interact. Yeah. So I think that is really, we're kind of in a shock now from this old video stuff and Zoom and so on. And now to see what is the right mix, that is really the path moving forward. And so, yeah, it's really about technology on one hand and sales, not prepared for that, and also for the length of the things happening.
Thank you, Thomas.
I agree totally with that, Thomas. The change, I think, from having a very interactive workforce that met socially in an office, I think a lot of people missed that, but more so, I think, was the interaction with the customer. And so a heavily geared sales organization that Tata are, I think that face-to-face interaction with our customers, where we'd meet them on a regular basis, was all of a sudden overnight gone. And then how do you adapt to that when the demands on our business are the same with regard to revenue and having to sell? How do you adapt and ensure that the numbers are met, but you can only communicate with people either by video or over the phone? I think that's a great point. And I think there's one of the things, maybe two things, to take away from this is, being a technology company, we adapted really quite quickly. Within 2 weeks, we had 98% of the workforce working from home. So we then sort of focused our attention purely on the customers and ensuring that the customers were in good shape and how we can help them. But I think all the points that have been raised about the social aspects of being in the office, we've gradually evolved over these last 3 months to have things like the huddles, certain organisations, part of the organisations invite people for a drink online. So at 5 o'clock on a Friday, people can drop in and have a glass of wine and some snacks. There's a fitness class that happens at 7 o'clock every morning. Things like this have evolved, and I think they're really good practice to adapt to and to adopt to. But I think that the customer interactivity is one that we missed on, and I think that going forward, that should be part of the business continuity program, is to ensure that we have something in place that we don't find this hiatus of direct customer interactivity, because there were some questions being asked about, well, how do we do this now? And forecasts were going down on the basis of not having the right level of customer interaction.
Thanks, Steve. It almost sounds like some sort of customer outreach program.
Yes.
Would that be a way to summarize?
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
Yeah, okay.